I've never not been on this journey. I kind of dropped on the path. I don't remember not writing. Um, According to my mother, I was writing letters at like, she said 18 months. That sounds crazy, but before two, I was writing letters. But it makes sense because I remember my dad was moving. I told this story a couple times, but my dad was moving some years ago. And I think he was like, throwing stuff out and found like this. I think he found a box of like old stuff from when I was a kid, and I had written a book. Like, of course, I'm 4 years old, so it's like it's construction paper stapled together. Um, you know, Cops and robbers is the story. It's all of that, but it had a plot. It had a conclusion. If you look at the front of it, it said author BONSU Thompson, illustrated by BONSU Thompson. So I was emulating what I was reading at 4 years old. Well, my career started before I graduated from college. I needed an internship in order to graduate because my major was print journalism when print journalism was a thing. Um, so yeah, I needed a internship to graduate, and I got an internship at Harris Publications, which at the time, which I feel was kind of serendipitous, was the publication house for two of my favorite magazines at the time. Slam magazine, which was a basketball publication, basketball magazine that articulated basketball but through a very hip hop lens. And then there was Double XL, which was an up and coming rap magazine that I had loved. Nobody knew about it, except like diehard rap mag fans, but I loved it. And I was like, this is crazy. Like my favorite, new magazine and my favorite basketball magazine are actually under the same house. So I wound up interning for both staffs and, made amazing relationships. And it was like one of the best times in my life. And again, serendipitous. So, that was one of the first things that made me realize like we have control, right, and will in our life, but like certain places we're going to be plopped. We're going to be taken and dropped. On those plots of land. My last magazine job was the editor in chief of the Source. Worst job I ever had in my life, which I thought was a dream job. And that job was so bad, I decided I'm not going back into the workforce. And I had to figure out who I was going to be as a professional, as a storyteller. And the first thing I did was realize that I didn't want to be confined to a magazine or even like the written word. I'm always going to be a writer by nature, but uh, I saw media and how it was changing. We're having social media, and YouTube is becoming a huge thing. And I'm seeing that the audience is consuming at a different rate. They have their appetite is larger, and you need visual art in order to satisfy that hunger. So I had to teach myself how to become a visual storyteller. I've always been a cinephile, so trying to just get into, okay, we love this and we know this movie does this for me, or we know this character does this for me, or this scene does this for me. I had to get into the weeds of why, what was being executed to make me to evoke this emotion or this feeling, right? Um, and talked to some friends who were doing it. I had a good friend of mine, Eric Parker. He's a legendary hip hop journalist, and he went on to do amazing things. He directed the Time is Illmatic documentary, the Nas documentary that opened up Tribeca Film Festival, I think, in 2013. And he didn't have formal training, and I had a conversation with him, and he encouraged me. He was like, as long as you know storytelling and you do the work, you should just go for it. And I held on to that. I would do bios for music artists, right? As part of as an independent creative, that was part of like my income. I would stay in contact with record labels, and some often they would want me to do bios. I mean, I've written bios for everybody. I mean, Trey Songz, Ti, Future, Dwight Howard, Swiss Beats, Rick Ross. I mean, too many to name, honestly. But on and on. Like I've written, you know, bios for a lot of stars. I mean, and even execs as well. And Fortune 500 C-suite execs that nobody knows about. But I love, I really love I love and appreciate the opportunity to tell somebody's story. I think it's an honor, and and especially when I can take somebody's story and then kind of like regurgitate it back to them, almost, get better than the way they articulated it to me, for them, like they almost love their story even more. Like I love that. And I think it's an honor, honestly, to be able to articulate that to somebody, to make somebody else's history be appealing to them. I mean, Two Chains, he had the Duffel Bag Boys, and that single was rocking, blah blah blah. And but when his partner went to jail, he had to stand on his own too. And a big reason that he got cracking independently as a solo artist is because he did, I think it was Codeine Cowboy, his documentary, and that shit was tough. But what it did was it gave people complexions. It wasn't just about a song. And I always tell artists, man, I tell execs, I tell aspiring artists, I'm like, this is why people have become one hit wonders. This is why people have big songs, right? And then they drop their album and they flop. Because if somebody loves your song, they just want that song. They want that song in their playlist. They want to hear it in the club. They want it for themselves. If they're invested in you, you can make a mistake musically and you'll still have a fan because they're invested in you. Who you are doesn't go anywhere, right? They want to be part of your narrative. I was there from day one. I saw him on his mixtape. I saw him for the first time here, blah, blah, blah. Saw him when he was broke. And now when you come up, you give them aspiration. That's the symbiotic relationship between fan and artist. With everybody looking at themselves as a brand, you have celebrity chefs, you have influencers, right? Everybody's a brand, even, athletes now, right? Like they're the catwalk from the bus to the locker room. That's a commodity right there. That's a whole fashion runway now. They have stylists now. And big brand managers and things of that nature. So everybody's a brand that's doing something. So what I'm telling everybody is like, look, especially those who are scared of AI, right? AI just pulls from shit. It needs a pull from a reservoir. So if you made a song 2 weeks ago and nobody knows your name, and Billboard wants to do a story on you, what are they pulling from? They need to pull from something. So that's where I come in. Like I'm here to lay ground. I want to be the one to tell your story from jump. I'm always interested in what's behind what's like the onion, right? Like what are the layers? Like we always see the moon, right? Everybody looks at the moon. The moon looks beautiful. It's vibrant, right? Luminous. It's gorgeous, right? It looks almost like a pearl, like on fire almost, right? But if you really go closer to the moon, it's ugly as fuck. Like it's cratered. It looks like the leftover from the solar system, man. Like it's been abused by the solar system. And that's the funny part, man. It's like we look at something from a distance and we think it's shiny, and you get up close and you start seeing their scars. You start seeing their reality. And that's where humanity lives, man, in those dimensions, those flaws. I'm moved by just human life, and that's why I hate when movies, television shows have like monolithic characters or one note characters. It's like, how many times are we gonna see this, man? There's so much more there. Like what does a black mother look like on the big screen? Is it Florida Evans from Good Times all the time? Like is it the sassy goosenecking mother? Or are we going to get into like the strength, or does she always have to be in duress, like Viola Davis in Fences or something? You know what I mean? Like, and again, no shade to Fences. I loved it. Amazing movie. But it's always like, it's like the black woman is either, under duress some way, being abused some way, with the weight of the world on their neck. And, I just want to see black mothers, brown mothers, Latino mothers, like look be viewed with the cape that they wear. I have consumed so much involuntarily. You know, uh, I've always been, a fairly well-read student, just individual, right? My favorite readings are the stuff that I read outside of school. It always has been. Um, but realizing what I was forced to consume. I mean, I've read great stuff. Hemingway. Charles Dickens. Right? Okay, great stuff when you're younger. But look how much much kept from us. I mean, I'm looking at the books that were in my household. The books that my mother and father were reading in college. The autobiography of Kwame Nkrumah. Um, you know, um, France. You know what I mean? Like we're reading, of course, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Like I'm like just all these powerful individuals. Learning about the Zulu tribes. From centuries ago, and like none of this stuff was being taught to me. Same thing with film. It's like I've seen so much of these movies, right? The reason why I used to flock to movies like Menace to Society or Boys in the Hood, it's not because I had a fixation with violence and gang culture when I was a kid. I mean, that wasn't the case. I mean, it was around me absolutely. We dabbled in all the things, but like that wasn't my cinematic, attraction. It was that was the only reflection that we had on television, on the big screen. Like, I wasn't in LA when I wasn't around Bloods and Crips, but those characters looked very much and felt very much like what I saw in Bed-Stuy, what I'm saying, or what I saw on Church Avenue, right? Those conversations, right? You have the strong father who wants the best for you. That was my dad. You know what I mean? Furious Styles was very much my father in a lot of ways. Um, but then you have like, the mother who's trying to figure it out. And that was also a portion of my life. Uh, so yeah, like I don't, as much as I would love like, watch The Notebook every day, that shit wasn't my life. Where were the options for reflection? Like where were the other stories? And not to say that they weren't there, but like very few and far in between. I mean, you look at the movies that I consumed, as a teenager. I mean, like New Jack City, Boys in the Hood, Men's Society, and then you had rap documentaries, right? Like The Show and those things. But then you had like Do the Right Thing, right? That was something that was Do the Right Thing was the first hip hop movie that didn't need rappers because it was all culture. The world is basically just the human body, the good, the bad, and ugly, right? You need water. The majority of the planet is water. Like you have to, what you put into it, you're going to get out. You know what I'm saying? And if when you don't take care of your body, guess what? It acts up. And what the fuck is happening with the world right now, right? It's acting the fuck up. We can't even tell what the seasons are anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like it was 40 degrees. Literally, it was 40 degrees 3 weeks ago. It was 80 degrees last week. Like, make it make sense. We're not even in summer yet. How we getting 80 degrees and 40 degrees in spring? Like that doesn't, you get winter and summer in the same season. Like, doesn't make any sense. So anyway, again, I want to just add complexion in what I'm not seeing. So, I hold high regard a movie like Do the Right Thing because it gave something that wasn't there. It gave something that was already there that wasn't being articulated. We didn't need another rap movie. What we needed to show lifestyle. What I try to do today is just give what's not being seen. And if you watch my film Story Ave, like, it's about a graffiti movie, and it's like, yeah, graffiti in 2023, like, where's that being seen? You know what I'm saying? There's been some graffiti movies, but that lifestyle is still something that's still out there. We still see it, not as much, of course, like the 80s in New York, but it's still out there. And a lot of those graffiti writers are now like, agency, designers, and they've gone on to do corporate things. So, or just some are in museums, and and being praised through galleries and things of that nature. So, again, I'm always about the missing note, man. Stuff that's right under your nose that you haven't seen. I think at the core of them of each character, there's goodness, right? But they're flawed. Again, Luis's character, he did he have a kind heart? Absolutely. Was he motivated by some of his demons? Absolutely. Was he still haunted by some of his demons? Absolutely. Did he always make the right decision? No. But was he still an angel, a guardian angel to Kadir? Yes, because Kadir, very human. I mean, you got a 17-year-old kid who's trying to basically discover himself through his gift, which is art, right? But he's being pulled between these two worlds. The art gallery world, which he's being instructed that that's the way to go, even though it doesn't feel organic. And then you have the graffiti street world, which is so anti the other side, right? So he's literally being pulled between two. But at the same time, this kid is grieving. Now, you think about this world and how few chances black kids have, brown kids have. We don't get opportunities to figure it out. We don't get passes for making the wrong decision because we're dealing with trauma, because one of the parents is at home is on drugs, or because we just saw our best friend get killed. We don't get those passes to make those errors and get saved, and we don't get those. So I wanted to really articulate with these characters of how one wrong move can mess it all up for you. You know, one wrong move can mess it all up for you. This is not new for black and brown men, especially black men. This has been going on since way before Emmett Till. I mean, this was a thing. They would. I mean, if you saw Sinners, you see the story that Delroy Lindo told in that movie, like about the musician had a wad of money and they caught him on the train and lynched him and said that he raped a white woman. They don't even need a trial. You raped a white woman, we're hanging you, we're killing you, and taking your money. That was life. That was life. So, but that lynching, it may not be literal today, but it's still, that noose is still very much around our neck. So at any opportunity, I'm going to articulate how it's still here. Just because it's invisible doesn't mean it ain't choking you. To me, Malcolm X is the ultimate Jesus story. Like the ultimate Jesus story. This man was at the bottom, and you talk about traumatized. This man's father was ran over by a train. Like, and I think he saw the body, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I read it so much, I should know this by heart, but like, that man was traumatized. Mother was so traumatized that she had to be admitted into a institution. I mean, this man was already traumatized. Of course, he was going to go towards the streets. Like, what else could you do? Even if he wasn't traumatized, what are you going to do other than go towards the streets? You know, in the early 20th century for a black man. But then finds himself and works on himself in solitude in prison to make sure that no matter what world he faces when he gets out, he's immovable. Like, I'm going to master self. And like that right there is our goal. That is our purpose of life. We are supposed to master ourselves, that no matter what goes down around us, any circumstance, we don't move. We're immovable. Unless you were doing something that you knew was wrong, then you were just working with the tool set that you had. Like you did the best that you could do in that moment from where you are in life. Where you are at in life. You did the best. Now, if you knew better, right? And not just, and I mean, there's one thing to know better, right? And do better. But like sometimes your gut says you shouldn't be doing this. And I've been there. I've done stuff where it's like, this ain't you. This don't even feel right. These sneakers don't feel right. Why are you wearing these? It's like, oh, these are the new Louis 2003, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. And it's like, yeah, but now your feet killing you the next day because they wasn't built for your feet. So there's knowing, like straight up, like I probably shouldn't do this because if I do this, it's going to affect that person in a negative way. But then there's things where like, whatever your religious affiliation is, whatever your spirituality looks like, your maker talks to you. The universe talks to you. Your gut is your maker, your creator, your deity, whoever you worship, pray to, speak to, live with. That's your gut. And when it says that's not a great idea, and you still move forward, you will pay. There was a time where like black journalists around like 08, 09, like popular black journalists were being like plucked to do like this was like the web boom was starting, right? The dot-com rush was happening, and they were doing like these gossip sites, right? And certain black journalists who had, a little bit pull, resume, strong Rolodex, connections, and they were being pulled in these spaces to do gossip, basically like the Inquirer online. And their job was going to be like to get, tell what you know, and be the spook that's sat by the door and infiltrate these circles more and bring back the information. And I was just like, man, my whole thing, my whole value is the integrity and the trust that A&Rs and artists and and editors have in me. And I was like, at the end of the day, I gotta wake up and look myself in the mirror. I don't like doing shit that, like, I'm my worst critic, and I'm my biggest fan. So once I tell myself something is corny, like, don't matter what anybody else really says, I can't really do it. Karma, I don't think is a one bad thing you pay for it for the rest of your life thing. I think it's about how you live your life. And if you've contributed, you've poured into this world with a lot of good, you know what I mean, then yeah, I don't think you'll pay as dearly, you know what I'm saying, for mistakes, if they are true mistakes. You know, doing something bad because you want to do something bad is a different type of decision. Doing something wrong that you know is wrong is a different type of decision. And you have the right to make that decision. Just understand what you're doing. It's a different penalty for ignorance as opposed to somebody who knows better. Yeah, but your job is to contribute to this world, and I don't have children, but I very much hold people who contribute to the world in a high regard. How you contributing to this world outside of your home? Like, it's easy to clean your home. It's easy to pour into your children. It's easy to love your wife. It's easy to love your husband. But can you love a community? Can you love a stranger? Can you pour into a child you don't know? It's one thing to teach a third grade class, another thing to teach 14-year-olds who are, who committed murder and are in the juvenile detention center. What are you contributing to this world? How many people are you impacting with what you do? You can't destroy who you are in one day, just like you can't, build yourself up in one day. So I think you don't get punished for one thing. The larger the error, of course, the larger the punishment. But I think it's about really how you live your life. You know what I'm saying? Like, they always say, like, are you going to judge the girl because she strips when she's stripping to go to college? Like, are you judging her for that? Are you judging the guy who sells crack to keep his mother in, a proper living facility? When, he had, he was on a spectrum when he was young, but nobody knew how to diagnose him. So he never really got a proper education and he can't get hired, but he still has to take care of his mother. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm talking about humanity comes with complexion. That's what I'm saying with my characters and making sure that people are reflected properly. There are too many adults with children. And that's the problem, because your job on this planet is to develop yourself, right? But it takes decades to develop yourself. And we never really leave whole. Like, we don't have the years to completely develop ourselves. You do the best that you can, and you try to make as few mistakes as possible and learn from the lessons and make sure your errors don't become repeats, right? You make sure that's really just about wins, not wins and losses, but wins and lessons. That's really the key to evolution, right? And development. But yeah, man, you think about it. Like, we're having kids as teenagers, young adults, man. Like, do you really know yourself at 21 years old? If you ain't developed yourself, then how you developing a 7-year-old at 25? So what happens is you got underdeveloped adults raising underdeveloped kids who become underdeveloped adults. He wasn't nurturing his kids. So that's my father's father. He didn't nurture my father. My father is not a very, my father didn't love with a lot of emotion. He loved us and he showed love, and I know he loved me, but he wasn't a very emotional father, right? He didn't have that. And that's because his father was just basically like an iceberg, beat his wife in front of his children, beat his children, and again, never nurtured. So my father is an evolution of that. My father never really beat me with anger. My father beat me to discipline me. And my father poured a lot into me. I owe a lot to who I am because of my father, because my father prioritized certain things that a lot of fathers, especially black fathers, didn't do. And I owe him a lot for that. My mom was harder than my dad, actually. You know, my mom's from Williamsburg Project. So loving as hell, but like I never had like a soft, lovey, like, smooches all day. Like I never had that, you know what I'm saying? But that's because, especially for my father, he never had that. My dad never even got his birthday celebrated when he was a kid like that. And he used to make a big deal when I was a kid about birthdays, like made sure we had a cake, make sure, you're getting sung to. And I didn't realize why, I just thought all kids had that. But I mean, he made it a big deal, such a big deal because he didn't have that. So again, my dad's an evolution of his father. And if I had children, I would be an evolution of my dad. I mean, if you look at the conversation with James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, she's like, yo, lie to me like you do your white boss. He's like, I can't, like I love you more than anything. She's like, yeah, but I get the abuse. I'm the one that you come home and you can't punch your white boss in the face. You can't curse him out. So guess what you do? You come home, you drink, you try to forget about the pain that you went through all day and the humiliation and the emasculation that you dealt with all day. And then you take it out on me, physically, emotionally, all the things. And she's like, well, look, if it's going to keep me from being beat, if it's going to keep me from being hurt, emotionally, physically, yeah, lie to me. Give me the lie. It's easier. So it's the same thing, man. Like, we're doing the best that we can. You know what I mean? Our parents did the best that they can. It's really hard to be lovey-dovey to your children when you're a slave. It's really hard to be super affectionate when the world is kicking you in the ass every single day and it's unfair. They're giving you a bucket with a hole in it and telling you to fill it up with water every day. Can't come home and love your wife properly, because guess what? You can't love yourself properly. And that's where love starts. People look at therapy as something that fixes you, right? Or highlights with us, right? The shaming is that it fixes something that's wrong. And if we go for therapy, that means that something is wrong. Well, guess what? It's not about something being wrong. It's that we're not perfect. And it's your job to work on your weaknesses and work on your imperfections. They'll never be perfect, right? Because it's just like the Icarus story, right? You're supposed to aim for the sun, but you're never going to get to the sun. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't go for the gusto every single time. That doesn't mean you shouldn't test your bandwidth every single time. So all the work I've been doing, on my own, and I feel like I'm a better person than I was 5 years ago, and I feel like I was a good person 5 years ago. So I see the improvement, 2, 3, 5 years later. I see where I was 10 years ago. I saw how I thought 10 years ago. I see how I thought 5 years ago, and I see how I think today. And I love this version of me more than any of the other versions, So and that's because the tool belt is robust. It's more than it was. Than it was 5 years ago. It's more than it was 10 years ago. And and it will be more in 5 years from now.